All right, well, some things never change.
Yep.
Like for some, for those of you who work in the quality industry, it's that idea that quality guys are just police, looking forward to find us doing something wrong. Or like the guys in the suits, the ones up there in the C-suite,
Yep.
who view quality as some necessary evil that doesn't really contribute to the bottom line, but you got to have a quality control department, so that's those guys.
Yep.
So how do you change those attitudes? And in particularly, how do you change those attitudes about quality as a non-value adding function? How do you change that attitude at the top? Well, that was the subject of the article, Breaking into the Boardroom, Making the Business Case for Executive Sponsorship of Quality, written by our next guest, Dan Jacob. Dan is a research analyst with LNS Research, which provides research and marketing information on the business processes and technology capabilities that you need for achieving operational excellence. Dan is joining us right now via Skype. Hi, Dan.
Hi, gentlemen. How you doing this morning?
Oh, pretty good.
Good, how are you?
All right. So, seriously, from your research, are there really still companies out there that look at quality as a non-value adding police function? And maybe if not at the C level, is that still the impression maybe down on the shop floor still?
Yeah, so when we consulted our LNS quality management survey extensively. We used a lot of that data when we were generating the analysis for the research that we're going to be discussing next week and on this show. And one of the areas we track is top challenges in meeting quality objectives. And one of the top challenges out there at 34% of respondents is that quality is seen as a department versus a responsibility. So that idea has been there for a long time, and it's been, that has stayed consistently in the top 3 since we began that survey roughly 5 years ago. So would you gentlemen permit me a hockey analogy?
Oh boy.
Oh, here we go.
Go
so,
Sharks.
I was thinking of, all right, yeah, okay, there we go, right? So I'm a Pittsburgh guy, so the Penguins and the Sharks. I know it's the wrong show for this, but we're in the middle of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and there was a game last night, and one of the things that occurred to me was that quality is very much like a hockey skill, not necessarily an individual player. We know that there's a it's a team. And quality needs to be cross-functional, but it's really a lot like a skill, like puck handling. Puck handling is a lot like quality in that it has an impact on both offense and defense. So it can provide a lot of value. We see that a lot in industry with organizations really differentiating themselves and gaining market share because of quality. And it also has an impact from a defense perspective on preventing defects from leaving the shop floor, for instance. Secondly, it's a cross-team skill. If you have an individual who is amazing at puck handling, that doesn't necessarily mean your team is going to be Stanley Cup material. You really, who's going to pass to, right? So you need to have this ability for the team to work together and really and have puck handling that drives goals and prevents defensive mistakes. And then finally, everyone knows that quality is very valuable, right? We know that. We know that it's a whole ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Just like that, puck handling is very important, but how do you prioritize it? There's a lot of things an organization is trying to accomplish, and at the C-suite level, they've got this challenge where, I want to prioritize things I know are important, like engineering and sales and manufacturing, and where does quality fit in with that overall picture? So it's this challenge of, looking at this thing that really has to, in order to be successful, engineering creates a digital product, manufacturing creates a physical product, service creates a product, sales generates revenue. Quality is really something that stripes across all of that, just like puck handling. So, how do you get that and get the right engagement from all the different teams to make sure that you've got quality as a pervasive responsibility?
Well, I think that's a great analogy, Dan. I think that many of our readers out there would love to cross-check some of their bosses. Our quality readers would love to get their boss in the corner and just anyway.
What's the Gordie Howe hat check?
He just died.
I know, but the Gordie Howe hat check is a goal, assist, and a fight.
That's right, Gordie Howe hat trick. All right, well let's get away from hockey for a minute. Let's get back to your article, because in your article, Dan, you say that for the quality function or the quality department to be made a priority by that C-suite, the onus is on the quality department to make its business case. But doesn't that really involve the quality folks understanding the language of the C-suite? I mean, how do they even get started in communicating that business case?
I think it's one of the biggest challenges we have as a profession, right? If you look at quality leaders, we do a great job. We understand quality really well. There's a lot of focus on processes and teams, and there's many important topics in quality management. So a lot of those topics are things that we focus on as quality leaders. But the idea of communicating to the C-suite is really a critical one that needs more focus, because you can take two paths to gaining cross-functional quality and really breaking out of the silo. One of them is to go on a peer-by-peer basis. Work with the VP of engineering, VP of manufacturing, and so on. And when I talk to quality leaders out there in the field, and I've worked with them for a long time in different respects, that's something that takes years or decades to really gain that cross-functional quality and corporate quality. You need in order to really make a difference, you need to get the executives to help push and make a change for you in your organization. And so you need to begin by focusing on quality, not necessarily the quality department's objectives and focus, but start focusing from a cross-functional standpoint, and ideally at a strategic objective level. So tie your quality journey to what's strategically important to the company and drive the value from that. So focus on value, strategic objectives, and then build out the journey from that supports that overall strategic objective and value.
Well, I mean, even if you do make a case to the C-suite, kind of pulling in everything that you said there, isn't there still also, as is very often the case, that the C-suite, the guys up there in the suits, well, we didn't come up with the idea, and therefore we're not going to trust what you're saying? I mean, it's kind of a variation of the not invented here. It didn't come from the brainiacs at the top. It came from you guys down in where? What's that called? The quality department?
Right, exactly. Well put. I mean, that's definitely a challenge. So if you had an opportunity a couple months ago to talk to one of the board members of one of the big three, and they had gone through the organization that he's a board member of went through a major quality escape, and the CEO got engaged personally and helped solve that problem, and really championed a lot of changes, operational excellence improvement changes, because of that compelling event, this big negative compelling event that happened. She was involved, championed the changes in the organization. So one of my questions was, how do you take that lesson learned and translate that to other organizations? Because we don't want everyone to have to deal with those negative compelling events. Those negative and uncontrollable compelling events have a negative impact on, on the consumers, maybe on the environment, on the company, the shareholders, on employees, because a lot of times there's reductions in force that might occur if something's really severe. So there's all these impacts that has. You really want to focus on how do you get a positive and controlling compelling event. And so my focus was, how do you translate that knowledge? And it was, that wasn't something that was clear, right? So I didn't get a clear response. And I think when you look at, in general, that's been a challenge. You look at, a lot of organizations, an organization that's in a similar industry may have been burned by a problem that another company might face, but still you don't have that lesson learned. So you're left with a few options. One of them is, if you look at IT organizations, vendors, for instance, or consulting organizations, they do a great job with value engineering and understanding, going into a company and building out the business environment and understanding the processes and technology and people that are involved and the costs associated with that and how they might drive a change. But that sort of thing is very, on one hand, you've got this challenge where you can't translate between companies effectively because, again, it wasn't born, it wasn't made here. Secondly, that second approach is very tactical. It's something that you can identify a short-term roadmap, but it doesn't talk about the overall value of quality. And that's really was the focus of this research. And I think it's a contribution industry that we need, that you look at building out the value of quality management tied to strategic objectives with evidence to support that, that impact, and then also build out the frameworks and the elements that need to be considered, because to a certain extent, this is a problem that's something we're trying to get C-suite support and boardroom support for quality, but from an individual's perspective, from the quality group themselves, a lot of times there's less focus, not less focus, but a challenge with really opening up and changing the rule of quality within the organization, and start looking cross-functional and corporate-wide. So there's some cultural changes need to occur from that perspective too. So we provide those frameworks to understand how to make those changes, and then finally some of the underlying evidence. And I think that's one of the areas where having all these years of research and data and executive benchmarking, that gives us access to a number of different metrics. There were 12 metrics that we analyzed over, I think it was 46 best practices from a people, process, and technology standpoint. And we were to look at those and identify really which ones have the most impact, both from maybe in your short term when you're trying to make these initial improvements, and then also really pointing to and underlying the overall value of quality management as a whole.
Well, Dan, we don't want to give it all away. We're going to have a lot of that information and a lot more at a webinar that you're presenting next week. It's called Quality Management in the Boardroom: Building the Executive Business Case for EQMS. Quality Digest is hosting, so I'll be there, and Dan will be presenting this information and a whole lot more. That's next Thursday, June 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Dan Jacobs, lead quality research analyst with LNS Research. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Okay.
We'll see you on Thursday. Thanks, Dan.
All right. Bye-bye.